So I just wanted to start my vlog with a walk around of the FZR. One of my favorite things about this bike is the way that it looks. So I just wanted to do a review of the FZR because I'm selling it. I found a buyer and I'm unloading one of my bikes. There's a lot of great things about this bike. I think the one that stands out is the front brakes. So it's got twin discs, and these ones have been upgraded to steel braided brake lines, and the brakes are just phenomenal. Very confidence inspiring. The engine is a V-twin, and so it's a lot smoother and it just sounds so much better than the Taiwanese singles. This one's been upgraded to a 200, and I've never ridden one of the 150s, but everyone says they're slow and they struggle to make 100, and this one definitely doesn't struggle to make 100. I think the speedometer is a bit ambitious, probably close to 20% ambitious by my calculations, but even then it cruises at 100 effortlessly up a hill, and it'll go faster than that. Like, I've seen it indicated 140, which is probably more like 120. But you're not going to be outrun by any of the Taiwanese 150s. And the look of the V-twin is just really nice as well, even if you can't see it very well under the fairing. I really like the riding position. If you look at the bars, you can see that they're clip-ons. So it really feels like a little R6. I had a Ninja 300 and a CBR 250, and they're better than this in many respects, but the bars on those are much higher. They have risers, so the bar is actually above the triple clamp, and that's a key difference when it comes to riding position, where the Super Sports are below the triple clamp. And believe me, you notice it. When I got on it, I instantly really liked the riding position, but then over time it can get painful. But then if you stick with it, you figure out how to deal with it. You're not supposed to be putting a bunch of pressure on your wrists, so your wrists really shouldn't hurt, and my wrists never hurt, but it puts more strain on your core muscles and on your back, especially if you're carrying a backpack. But when you get into a turn, it just gives you so much confidence, and you just want to just keep tipping it in. And therein lies the dichotomy of the bike. It carries its weight forward like a little R6. It feels like it really wants to be ridden hard and tip it in really far. I never wore my leathers with the bike and my knee sliders. If I had, I definitely would have tried to drag knee. The suspension is budget, and so as long as the road is smooth, you can drag knee, I'm sure. But if the road isn't smooth, it's going to cause you some problems. The suspension is vintage, 1990s technology, and it probably wasn't at the top of the food chain even back then. Oh, they repaved this, nice. This was getting really nasty. this guy. They take away the center lines and these guys are like, oh, well, I can hug the turns on your side of the road. So as I was saying, as long as the turn is smooth, you're good to go. And it feels really stable. Well, if you hit a big bump, the suspension just isn't up to snuff. It's not as good as a budget newer suspension like what you would find in a CBR 250 or a Ninja 300, which aren't super sport suspensions, but they're a pretty good step above this. And I see people who upgrade them, and long story, I actually bought an R6 shock for cheap in the States, a used one, and I put it in my luggage to bring it back here. I guess they didn't realize it was there. They took it on the plane to all across the Pacific Ocean to Tokyo, and then on the last leg between Tokyo and Taiwan, which is 3 hours, they found out that it was there, and they were like, oh, you can't have this in your luggage, it's got gas in it, it could explode in the plane. And I was like, yeah, but it was just on a 12-hour plane ride across the ocean and it didn't explode. But they just have to follow regulations. I didn't blame the workers, they were really polite to me. But they took it out and I couldn't find anyone to ship it for me. So I ended up abandoning it and losing my $60 US. I heard that the R6 shock will work, even though the R6 is a lot heavier. Possibly the leverage ratios are different or something. And they say it's shorter. Looking at the shock is hard for me to believe, but I haven't had this shock out of the bike, so I don't really know. But the guys on the Facebook page claim that it works, and some of them have it. So a rear shock is fairly easy to upgrade, and that would probably cure 80% of the suspension issues, because it feels like the forks are passable. But I'm used to riding a Supermoto with a top shelf suspension, and so I hook it into these turns and then I hit a bump, and then next thing I know I'm getting a huge tank slapper. I had 2 pretty big moments on this thing because I was pushing it harder than it was really designed to be pushed. So this V-twin, it has this flat power curve just right on up, and it wants to rev. It's a really fun engine for a 4-stroke. The power band is fairly uncharacteristic, and then when you get on the RZX and you rev it up, and at 5,000 RPMs it hits the pipe and goes and just takes off. Like, it's just way more entertaining for me. I never pick the simple option because I'm used to bikes with character, and so I decided to keep the RZ and sell this one. I also knew that this one would be a lot easier to sell because it's 4-stroke. Everyone wants a 4-stroke these days. The government is trying to ban 2-strokes. And so if you live in a big city, it could be a hassle if they can pass a ban later in a couple of years. And it's a real shame because I just find the RZX more enjoyable to ride than this. You know, this looks better. When I'm in the corners, I like the sporty riding style. It's heavier, so it's more substantial. And I rode it all the way down to Tainan took it on Dapu, the famous twisties, and it was a blast. You ride it completely different than you ride my 400. The brakes give you a lot of confidence into turns, and so you can just hook it in, and you have to hook it in. If you want to maintain speed, you got to carry a lot of speed in. So that's me bike. I'm dropping it off to be shipped.